Hi, this is Mark Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore, and today I want to share with you something I've been working on the last couple days that is kind of fun, and I think you'll enjoy it. What it is, excuse me, is a reharmonization, somewhat of a reimagining that I've been working on of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, the second movement. A long time ago, years ago, I had done a jazz reworking of the first movement, which really required a lot of sort of piano. I had to practice my butt off to get that thing happening. I'll post a link to that video. But the second movement is really beautiful. I mean, it really works lovely as a jazz ballad, or not even jazz. I mean, because I could totally notate everything. We could notate everything that I'm going to talk about here, and then you could just have we'll call it a late romantic, as if like Beethoven had written it, say, 70 years later than he actually did, how it might have come out if Debussy had wanted to write it, for instance. So I'm going to just kind of play through and talk through what it is that I'm doing. And I've got the sheet music. I'll post in a link also so you can follow along the sheet music. I'm going to talk about what's happening as it's happening, but I'm going to have the camera on the keys so you can hopefully see a little bit what I'm doing. But I'm going to talk about it as I do it also, because I recognize it'll be hard to do it. So I'm going to kind of take it a measure at a time, a phrase at a time, and just talk about what's going on and what I think I might want to do with that. So let me get some more light on the music for me, get the camera down on the keys, and let's sort of go. So if you're not familiar, it's a beautiful piece. Look up recordings of real classical pianists playing it. I'm just going to play the first four measures, or first phrase anyhow, as written, so you can kind of hear where we're starting from. So that is the main theme of the piece. It comes back many times. In fact, he goes on to repeat it an octave higher right then, and then put some other sections that he kind of intersperses with it in kind of a rondo form, I would call it. The next piece is the third movement is more of a rondo. So I want to just talk about what's happening harmonically here a little bit, because it's really that main theme I'm going to be the most interested in getting the most mileage out of, because it's going to come back several times, and I want to be able to maybe make it a little more different every time. Beethoven makes little variations every time it comes back, but I want to make bigger variations. So we have, it's in the key of A flat. We have the 1 chord. Then this is the 5 chord. It's E flat 7. And then the 1 chord again. And then the 5 again. And then back to 1. So over the first couple of measures, it's just 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. However, the way Beethoven is playing it is really interesting in that he doesn't use root position for these chords. He uses inversions to get a more interesting bass line out of it. That's the bass line he's created out of it. And the thing is, it's a beautiful bass line. For my purposes, I want to keep that bass line at least the once. In my playing around with it, I've discovered that some of the other things I want to do with it harmonically actually work better if you keep it in root position, or maybe make different inversion choices. But that works so well just as it is. I think that's how I want to keep it. However, this alternating, they're written as sixteenths, that is going to get in my way. And that's one of the things, that's Beethoven's language of how you might keep a rhythm going. The thing that I'm going to be thinking about here well, I'm not going to be thinking about, frankly. I'm just going to be doing with it rhythmically what I feel in the moment. It's not going to have that going on. Now, if I was doing this in a jazz trio setting, I might write out the chord changes and give it to a bassist and have a drummer, do brush ballad stuff. But I don't know. I'm just going to let it not have the 16ths. If you want to add them later, we can add them later. I'm just going to play these chords. I'm going to maybe take it and have it not be so triadic, because what happens here is we have a triad and then a 7th chord in inversion and then a triad, and then what starts off as a triad and then the 7th comes in the melody. Well, this idea of using mostly triads with occasional 7ths for effect, I mean, that's totally all about what the music of that era would be based on, and a lot of music today. But it's not what I'm mostly about as kind of a jazz pianist. So I'm going to adapt this a little bit. I'm just going to add color tones, not have that repeating 16th note thing. So as far as color tones go, on major 7ths, I can have, on major chords, the 1 chord and the 4 chord, the ones that are just, well, that's worth discussing in itself. But the 1 chord and the 4 chord, major 7ths, 6ths, and 9ths are the good notes. On the 7th chords, on the 5 chords, it's going to be mostly 9ths I'll be adding, but I'll also alter those 9ths and make them flatted 9ths and raised 9ths, and then I'll also raise 5ths and lower 5ths to get color tones out of the 5ths. Or if you prefer to think of it as a flat 13, you can. So if I take that first chord, instead of a triad, I might just look at this, which has now a 9th, a major 7th, and a 6th. And then, if I want to play this guy in an inversion, the inversion to me speaks loudly enough that it doesn't necessarily want a lot of additional color. So at most, maybe I'll put the 9th in it. Now, when I do this, this inversion no longer is really doing it for me. In other words, once I've started throwing in all that color, merely putting that 5 chord in first inversion with the 3rd on the bottom there, it now doesn't feel as strong as it did to begin with. So what I could do is actually not put all that color in at the beginning and keep it triads. I might at least tone down the color so that I can keep that exact bass line. So I could maybe I'm going to do that because the melody comes back often enough. I'm going to have ample opportunities to do other things with it. But yeah, so if I do this and then, whoops, that was one of the other ones I'm going to throw in later. So after this amount of color, that's where I hear my 5 chord going. This is a really standard device. So I'm just going to show you some of the things I'm going to do with those couple of measures while I'm talking about it now, so I can just throw them in later. I've got my 5 chord here, and I've got in it, the 5th is in the melody, so it's an E flat chord, B flat's in the melody. I've got the 9th, the 9th, and a 4th. And then taking those down in parallel motion. Just really standard jazz trick, but it's a great one. So the 4 and the 9 go down to 3 and flat 9. Right? It's just a really nice sound, and you'll hear jazz pianists do this all the time. So at the beginning, I started with this chord. Now there's another thing that I like to do, which is these, as long as we're just trying to get all the little jazz cliches in here, this is the thing, the biggest like jazz cliche for a major chord is maybe this walking line between the 5th, going up to a raised 5th, up to a 6th, and coming down. There's a tune, Brazil. I don't remember exactly how the tune goes. So I might use that little line periodically while I'm playing this thing. So I've got some color on that first chord, and then if I use the inversion, which I'll use here, I keep putting this other chord that this is actually turning that, instead of being an A flat chord, the 1 chord in the first inversion, I'm making it actually be the 3 chord. But instead of playing it as a minor chord, I'm playing it as a secondary dominant. I'm making it a dominant 7th. I'm not going to use it right there, but just so you see what's happening. I promise I won't spend the whole time talking about the first 2 bars, but the concepts that come up in these first couple bars, once I've sort of talked through them, you'll see how much I can make use of them later. So I'm just going to, I think I'm going to go on, because I think I'm happy with a fairly simple approach in the first couple bars. Now going on. And that's just Beethoven. All I did was maybe not have it, still kind of have this back and forth thing to create a little rhythm, but it's not ding ding ding. It's not exactly as regimented as it started, right? It kind of is, but it kind of isn't. I guess it kind of was, really, but I played it very rubato. And now, if I don't want to come just to a triad here, I'm going to not play a lot of triads. So I'm going to use that same trick. Going on. So this chord here is a really, I don't even know how to analyze this chord really. I mean, I can give it a bunch of different names. I mean, if I literally take this chord and rearrange its notes, it's a G minor 7 flat 5 chord, or G half diminished chord. The D flat on the bottom, though, do I want to try to see that as the root of the chord and see this as some sort of 4 chord? Because it actually, I'm going to do that in a second. Check this out. Right? If I actually play a 4 chord, it works. I didn't have to, but I chose to give that 4 chord a secondary dominant, 5 of 4. So this is A flat 7. That melody note E natural, is a sharp 5 or flat 13, works beautifully. And now going to a 4 chord. So I'm going to use that later. But, for now, I'm going to kind of keep this, and then it changes to another E flat chord, keeping that D flat in the bass. So it's still a 5 chord in inversion. So now I'm kind of doing this back and forth thing that I said I wasn't going to do. Whatever, I'll do it sometimes. I won't do it sometimes. I'm not going to make it be such a thing. I want motion, but I might sometimes arpeggiate. I might come up and do little splashy things to create motion. I don't know. So this chord is really nice, by the way. So this chord here, so I've gone 1 and then 5 in inversion, and then 6. So to walk down to the 6th chord, the F minor chord. Then the next chord is this, which is really, it's a B flat 7 chord. B flat 7. So in classical terms, we would call that 5 of 5, because 5 is coming next. It's the 5 chord of the 5 chord. So if E flat was our key, which it isn't, but we temporarily think of E flat as our key, B flat 7 is the 5 chord in that key. So I can use that exactly the way Beethoven did it, again, the first time, with maybe just a little added color or rhythmic variation. Say da ba 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 ba, right? And then so I could do that, but check this out also. Why not just play that B flat 7 chord in root position? I like this, jump of octave here, and then it leads nicely to the E flat. Oops, sorry. So it's a fine line, and I'm going to use it once. But after that, maybe I'm going to use it in root position, because it's actually quite nice in root position if we use some of those same tricks, like that 4 moving to 3. Check this out. Isn't that nice? So, I'm not saying Beethoven didn't do a fabulous job. He did a fabulous job speaking his language. What I'm trying to do is take this material, use what Beethoven gave us, and then put it in my own language. And I I want to make a little disclaimer here. The idea of just taking a classical melody and then completely like throwing it on top of some other entirely different type of accompaniment, that's all fine and dandy, but that's really not what I'm doing here. I'm not just taking this melody and then doing anything I want with it. I'm really looking at what Beethoven is giving us harmonically, his use of inversions, his use of voice leading and things. There's some beautiful voice leading things that I'm just going to rip off big time. So anyhow, if I play then from the beginning. I got to talk through this last couple of bars. So I played his thing, and then it goes to this 5 chord. Somehow the change from this chord to that chord, it's a subtle difference. The D flat stays here, and these 2 notes stay, but it goes from these 2 notes with this to these 2 notes with that. And it feels like a bigger harmonic change than it really is, but again, only if I play it pretty literally. The moment I try to throw any additional color tones, do anything else to it, it really changes its character. So at least again, the first time, I'm going to kind of keep it where it is, and at most just do my, slightly freer rhythms. So I'm going to use moving lines like this. So it's supposed to be this chord, but I'm going to give it a ninth. It's an A flat chord in first inversion. But if I give it a ninth and let it walk down, and then keep walking down to a flat 9. Beautiful sound. Okay, jazz person would call it a flat 9. I don't know what Beethoven would have called it, but he would totally use that sound as a diminished chord, as an A diminished chord. I'm just saying, you can go ahead and put the F on the bottom of it, it's still got a lovely sound. In fact, all right, Beethoven does that first movement. And then the big chromatic scale. This is the end of the introduction of the first movement. It is a G7 flat 9 chord if there ever was one. But Beethoven hedges his bets a little bit and has the left hand come up right as the A flat comes in. But come on, it's G7 flat. Anyhow, so going on. So this is the first actual. Well, it's not the first minor chord I guess I've had. I had the F minor before, but this is the first 2 chord that we've really had. And he has it just as a plain triad, and as where it is, the only thing I really do is put a ninth. On a 2 chord, 9 is the only color tone I use. Occasionally 11, but the 11th it's a nice sounding note, but it's also the root of the 5 chord, and maybe I don't want to sound it right away. But that 9th is going to be good. I don't tend to use the 6th on a 2 chord, the G, because that gives me this tritone here, which is the tritone that's going to define the E flat 7 chord to follow. So again, I don't want to give that away. So I'll go ahead. Now, using the same approach here of having the 4th and the 9th. And then here I had a control because the melody hits that 4th and then the 3rd. So I could wait and move them together, or I kind of like this sound. It's a sound I like a lot. A sus flat 9 chord in jazz terms. I've got the 4th and I've got the flat 9, right? And so he's got this really lovely sound here, which, again, jazz musicians are all about this thing. It's this diminished chord, the 7 chord, a G diminished chord with the A flat. So it's the 7 chord, but over the 1 chord as a pedal tone. All right, so that's the idea. He arpeggiates up so we can do the melody again an octave higher. So here's where I'm going to actually maybe put in more of those variations. Now, I mentioned I liked his inversion that he had where he had the D flat there, but it's as I put in more of the harmonic variations that I want to put in, it just doesn't stand up as well. So I'm going to be using a little more root position here and let my interest come from the inner voices rather than the bass voice. It's a valid choice. So I'm on right now the 1 chord in first inversion, but if I think of it as 3, or even if I don't, if I think of it as 1, here I can totally go 3, 6, 2, 5. 3, 6, 2, 5. Totally do that, right? And here's another lovely thing. Instead of going right to the 5 chord, how about if I go now I'm going to take advantage of that 11th because it is a nice sound. So I went from 5 of 5, B flat 7, to B flat minor 7, which is the 2 chord, then into the 5. That's really nice too. Now, if I do that, I have to think about whether I really want to throw in yet another chord in that measure, or if I want to. I think I do, because I'm going to like it as I do with the D flat. So. I've also got a flat 9 in there because I can. This is a variation of the then, so I could use his E flat chord there, but if I'm going to a real 4 chord, why not use, he's giving me this B flat in the melody, that's the 6th of the D flat chord. Oh, minor 6 chords are so lovely. And I don't care what Dave Hansen says. Dave, I love you. But I know you got a thing against minor 6 chords. I love them. Dave was my composition arranging teacher when I was getting my master's degree. That's for you, Dave. Minor 6 chord. Beethoven uses it a little later too. And then so here I'm gonna. I'm throwing all these little jazz motions in here. 9 going down to the flat 9, and also 13 going to flat 13, go to 5. Any variation of those, I haven't decided which one I like the best, but so something in that vicinity. I get to do it again later, so I can do it differently the next time. Maybe this time I will move all the voices together because I got a little more room to work with here. Remember, before I was way down here, and now I can move here these 2 guys together, but also move this guy down here. This idea of having a triad, because that's really happening on top here. I got an E flat in the bass, D flat triad on top, and then a C triad. These are called upper structures in jazz terminology. The idea of having a triad over a bass note, in particular, to spell out a dominant 7th chord with interesting variations. E flat, and maybe I play the root in the 7th, with a D flat triad on top gives me a E flat 7 sus, E flat 9 sus 4, and then when I go to a C chord on top, it's giving me the 3rd, it's giving me the 6th or the 13th, and the flat 9. So it's a nice sound in there. And then, all right. So those are some ideas, and I have more yet. But we're going to keep moving on. That's our ideas just for that first phrase. In fact, I'm going to stop this video here, just to have this be one digestible chunk, and then I'm going to move on and just do another video to continue on. So let's stop here.